What's up, guys? Welcome to Crime Snob Poscast, where every Monday we dive into some of the most twisted local true crime stories. My name is Sandra Goriello, and I am here with my beautiful guest host, Alice.
Hello.
And if you are a self-proclaimed crime snob like us, then you are in the right place. Today I have a case so scandalous that it blew up Westchester, New York headlines in the late 80s and early 90s and soon exploded into a media frenzy. This is the murder of Betty Jeanne Solomon and the deadly love triangle that helped media dub this case the Fatal Attraction murder.
I think I know this case.
Have you heard it?
I think so. The name sounds familiar, but I'm excited to hear the details.
Yes. So, fun fact about this story. So, I actually found this story because this was Christine from Pristine Brows and Beauty in Thornwood.
Yes.
This man that you're going to learn about, it was actually the teacher in the school that she attended.
Oh,
so yeah.
scandalous.
So she is the one who actually showed me this case, and then I deep dove into it.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. So very local,
Wow.
a little too local.
Yeah, a little too close to home.
Yeah. It was a cold, quiet Sunday evening on January 15th, 1989, when Paul Solomon, a sixth grade social studies teacher at Edgemont Elementary School in Scarsdale, New York, leaned in to kiss his wife, Betty Jeanne, goodbye. He was headed out to bowl with some friends at the Brunswick Bowling Alley in Yonkers, New York, which, side note, isn't there anymore. But it was located on Central Avenue, just so that you have a visual of the area. Kristen, who was Paul and Betty Jeanne's teenage daughter, was away for the weekend on a ski trip, which meant the apartment was unusually quiet for the next couple of days. Betty Jeanne, warm and soft-spoken, was the kind of woman who kept things running smoothly behind the scenes. She'd spent most of her weekend catching up on errands and decompressing from the busy week they just had. They had gone to a bar mitzvah the night before, so she was probably ready for a quiet, peaceful night in. Hours passed, and at around 11:42 p.m., Paul pulled into the Scarsdale Ridge Apartments on Central Park Avenue. The parking lot was still. The windows in the complex glowed faintly with the soft light of late-night TV shows and people settling in for bed. Paul parked and made his way up to their third-floor apartment, quietly opening the door so he didn't wake his wife. But when he stepped inside, Paul had an uneasy feeling. Not because he saw anything right away, but because the living room TV was blasting, which definitely seemed out of the ordinary, especially at this hour. And then, just a few steps inside, he saw her. Betty Jeanne was lying face down on the carpet, her body still, surrounded by blood. She was crumpled between the sofa, the stereo, and the wall. The telephone jack was unplugged from the wall, and the receiver was lying on the floor, just out of reach for Betty Jeanne. Again, so don't forget this was the 80s, so they had like that old school
cord phone.
Yeah, exactly. The cozy living room that had always been filled with warmth and routine now looked like the scene out of a horror movie. Panicked, Paul rushed to her, dropping to his knees, frantically turning her over, desperate to find a pulse, a breath, anything. With shaking hands and his heart racing, he fumbled for the phone and dialed 911. The woman he kissed goodbye just hours earlier was gone. And I'm going to play the 911 call so you can hear just how panicked Paul was.
I love a good 911 call.
Police. My name's Paul Solomon. I just got home. I think my wife is dead. She's on the floor bleeding. Okay, where are you? 340 Central Park Ave. Scarsdale Ridge Apartments, 812.
Does sound pretty panicked, though.
He does. So he basically says, my name is Paul, and then he goes, Paul Solomon. He goes, I just got home. I think my wife is dead. She's on the floor bleeding. And then they go, okay, where are you? He goes, 340 Central Park Avenue, Scarsdale Ridge Apartments, 812. The scene that awaited Greenburgh police that night was nothing short of horrific. When officers stepped into the Solomon apartment, they were met with sheer brutality. Shell casings were scattered like confetti across the living room floor, and the body of 40-year-old Betty Jeanne Solomon laid lifeless and soaked in blood.
Okay.
She had been shot 9 times, and not from a distance. 1 bullet left a contact wound to her upper arm and shoulder. 2 more tore through her legs. 2 hit her arms, and 3 were fired into her back.
Wow.
But the violence didn't end there. There were signs that she had also been pistol whipped. As detectives began combing through the apartment, something became clear almost immediately. There were no signs of forced entry, no broken locks, no kicked-in doors, nothing was ransacked, and that tiny detail sent a chill down everyone's spine because it suggested something truly unsettling. Betty Jeanne had likely known her killer, and she most likely let them in.
Were the doors locked when he got home?
You know, I don't know because he obviously lived there, so it doesn't say if he, like, unlocked the door.
Right.
But I'm guessing that he did because it's, for him, like, opening, it didn't seem like anything was really out of the ordinary at first. So,
Well, plus, like, they might not have. I feel like no one really locked their doors.
I know. And the way, so just so that you have a visual of the apartments, it basically was like an outdoor complex. So even though they were on the third floor, their front door led outside to like a stairway, basically.
Sure.
Like, maybe it was still locked,
right?
But also someone leaving could easily just like flick the lock and close the door too. Like in so many cases before, the first person in the hot seat was her husband.
As he should be.
Paul Solomon, her college sweetheart, quickly became the prime suspect. Investigators were laser focused, and Detective Constantino, who was assigned to lead the case, wasted zero time getting to work. Photos were taken, shell casings and bullet fragments collected, fingerprints dusted, sketches drawn, every detail mapped out. Officers canvassed the apartment complex, knocked on doors, checked cars, and recorded license plates. But here's the twist. No one heard anything. Not a single neighbor reported hearing gunshots. No yelling, no struggle. It was like the whole thing happened in total silence. Hoping to find the murder weapon. Also, side note, I've lived in apartment complexes. You have a lot of neighbors when you live in an apartment. Like, if my neighbors are walking to the bathroom, I can hear them. So being that she was on the third floor and someone was below her
and shooting 9 times,
right? Like, it's just weird that no one heard anything, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like
even if the TV was loud, I mean, gunshots that's a sound that is
very like distinct,
like
and
you
loud.
Feel it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unless there was a silencer on the weapon, which it was late. Even if someone heard her fall or struggle or nothing.
Yeah, no, nothing. I literally heard my neighbor drop a pen one time when I lived in Stamford. So that was interesting to me. Hoping to find the murder weapon, police expanded the search outside. They sifted through garbage bins, storm drains, and even the surrounding bushes and walkways. But still, nothing. The gun had vanished. Around 2:15 a.m., Betty Jeanne was officially pronounced dead. Her body was taken to the medical examiner's office while detectives turned their attention back to Paul, who was sitting quietly at a neighbor's apartment next door, looking shell-shocked. By 4:30 a.m., police brought him in for questioning. Paul told investigators that the day had started off quietly. Since their daughter Kristen was away, he and Betty Jeanne had slept in, made love, and shared a lazy late breakfast while watching TV. It sounded like a perfectly ordinary Sunday, so just kind of like a quiet, cozy Sunday in.
Yeah.
But then at around 2 p.m., Paul got a phone call from someone unexpected, a woman named Carolyn Warmis. She was a 23-year-old fifth-grade teacher at Edgemont Elementary where Paul had worked. She was also his mentee, and spoiler alert, as it turns out, so much more. So Paul told investigators...
She was 23?
23, yeah. So Paul told investigators that Carolyn had called to check in about work. But what he didn't mention, not at first anyway, was that the two of them had already made plans to meet later that evening at the Treetops Lounge inside the Holiday Inn in Yonkers, which after some digging, I realized that this Holiday Inn was located right off of Tuckahoe Road. Do you know where like the Royal Regency is? Like so it's the hotel that's like up a little bit more. Paul originally told police that he had been bowling all night, but in reality, he left the alley after about an hour and drove straight to the lounge. He arrived at around 7:30 p.m. and Carolyn showed up shortly after at around 7:45, and they grabbed a seat at the bar and enjoyed a few rounds of drinks and talked about how difficult it was for her to find good people to date, which sounds like a tale as old as time. And Carolyn seemed to hint at Paul and his maybe not so happy marriage, asking him, quote, "What about your happiness, Paul? Don't you deserve to be happy?" After telling Carolyn that he'd be happy to dance with her at her wedding after she found someone. Which I kind of took that as a way of him saying that, like, the fling is fun, but I'm not going to leave my wife for you type of thing.
So cliche.
So, yeah.
Oh, full of shit.
So Paul and Carolyn then moved to an actual table, ordered some food, and spent the next few hours eating, drinking, laughing, and chatting like they didn't have a care in the world.
While his wife was getting murdered.
But the night didn't end there. By 10:30 p.m., things got intimate. The two slipped into Carolyn's car in the parking lot, and, well, you can kind of guess what happened from there. Afterward, Paul said goodbye and drove home at around 11:30 p.m., only to walk into a scene straight out of a nightmare at around 11:42 p.m. So that kind of sums up his night up until his wife's murder.
I don't like it.
Me neither. But can you imagine cheating on your wife only to come home and to find that she's been murdered? Okay, so this was the very first time detectives had even heard the name Carolyn Mormis. And once they started digging, the picture they uncovered was wild. Paul and Carolyn had been having an affair for over a year and a half. And this wasn't just some secret fling. The worst part is Paul had brought Carolyn into his family's life. She attended Kristen's basketball games, went on ski trips with them, bought his daughter expensive, thoughtful gifts. She had befriended Betty Jeanne, and she wasn't just the other woman. She was literally woven into their world.
No.
Before Paul had even finished his initial interview, Greenberg police were already taking the next steps and headed straight into Manhattan to pay a surprise visit to Carolyn at her New York City apartment.
So she lived in the city.
She lived in the city. She commuted to Westchester to go to work. You're cheating, it's already bad enough you're cheating on your wife, but then to bring this person around to your family and almost play in your face.
Yeah.
That is
right in front of your face.
Literally, that is just messed
Gross.
up. Yeah. So since Carolyn was now a crucial piece of Paul's alibi, investigators weren't wasting any time. By 5:30 a.m., they had her back in Westchester County sitting down for questioning. Carolyn, for her part, seemed calm and cooperative. She told investigators that Paul had opened up to her about his marriage, confiding that while he loved Betty Jeanne, he wasn't in love with her anymore. She also expressed that she didn't think Paul was capable of murdering his wife. Just 5 days later, on January 20th, Paul laid his wife to rest. The memorial was filled with quiet grief. Paul spoke tenderly, calling Betty Jeanne radiant and painting a picture of a woman full of warmth and light. Behind the scenes, the funeral was under surveillance, though. Investigators were watching everything, scanning for something, anything that stood out to them. Someone who maybe was overly emotional, or someone behaving strangely. A face in the crowd that didn't quite belong, but nothing. No red flags, no drama, just kind of an ordinary burial, kind of filled with sadness.
Isn't it crazy that people do that?
Yeah.
After committing the crime, they'll go to the funeral.
Show face.
To
It's weird.
Yeah.
While Paul grieved publicly, Carolyn was pouring her heart out in private. She began writing letters to Paul. They were emotional and intense, filled with how much she missed him, how often she thought about him, and how deeply she loved him. She even updated him on the little things in her day-to-day life, desperate to hold on to the connection they had once shared. It seems like after his wife's death, Paul ended things with Carolyn, but she wasn't ready to let go. Not that easily, anyway, which is kind of crazy. He just lost his wife, and you're over here love bombing him.
Yeah.
Girl, read the room.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, something strange caught investigators' attention. Paul had moved him and Kristen back into the apartment where the murder happened. And I know most people wouldn't blink twice about this. I mean, maybe Paul didn't have the money to move, especially after the cost of a funeral and being on a teacher's salary.
That's true.
But the part that really stuck out was that the bloodstains were still on the carpet. It hadn't even been professionally cleaned.
Oh.
It was a chilling detail, one that didn't make Paul seem any less guilty, and one that made detectives question why anyone would want to return to such a traumatic scene, especially with their child.
I'm surprised that they would even allow you to do that.
Yeah, so I guess they cleared the scene. I'm pretty sure they took all the evidence, and also we'll get into some things later, but I'm pretty sure they just they took the pictures, they did what they had to do, and then basically released it back to him. And then he just moved back in, which was basically they were saying there's blood stains on the floor still, and your daughter has to wake up every day to that. Wouldn't you want to maybe stay with family, or at least get it professionally cleaned if you're not moving?
Anything?
Yeah, so that was interesting that investigators thought was a little weird. So with the case heating up, investigators circled back to Paul for another interview, but this time he had his attorney present. They pressed him harder on his relationship with Carolyn, and Paul admitted that she was smart, sweet, and passionate, but also jealous. He said that Carolyn had trouble accepting his bond with Betty Jeanne, even though, according to Carolyn, he had told her that the marriage was basically all but over. Then, out of nowhere, Paul dropped a bombshell. He casually mentioned that he believed Betty Jeanne had also been having an affair with a man named John Bourne, her supervisor at work. And suddenly, detectives had a brand new lead to follow.
Okay.
On January 25th, police paid a visit to John's home, and at first, he denied everything. No affair, no inappropriate relationship, nothing to see here. But the detectives weren't buying it. They brought him down to the station for a more intense round of questioning, kidnapping, and eventually John cracked. Yes, he admitted he and Betty Jeanne had been involved, but he insisted the affair had ended way before her death, and most importantly, he had an alibi, one that actually checked out. Right. So obviously their marriage, wasn't the perfect monogamous marriage, they were both kind of having their own fun on the side. So with John off the table, police were back to where they started. All eyes, once again, were back on Paul Solomon and his mistress, Carolyn Wormus.
That feels like the right place to be, though.
Yeah. Just when you thought this case couldn't get any more bizarre, it did. In a totally unexpected twist, Greenburgh police received a strange anonymous call from a woman who urged them to look into Paul Solomon's attorney, Gary Pillersdorf. She claimed that he had once attended a luncheon with Gary, or that she had once attended a luncheon with Gary, and during the meal, she overheard him casually discussing how to commit the perfect murder, in creepy detail, apparently.
The lawyer said that?
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
She said it unsettled her so much that she felt like she had to speak up about it.
Fair. But something worth mentioning.
But when police did some digging, they found out that the caller wasn't exactly a concerned citizen.
Okay.
She was actually a former business associate of Gary's, and surprise, surprise, their parting hadn't actually been that friendly.
Oh, she was just a little mad.
She was a little salty.
Okay. Still,
it sucked up police time and valuable resources that could have been spent chasing actual leads instead of gossip and grudges, which isn't that illegal? Can't you get in trouble for doing something like that?
I think it's illegal to file a police report, but those tip lines
Gotcha,
are
an
just,
anonymous tip.
Yeah.
Gotcha. As the months dragged on and still no arrests had been made, the community grew increasingly restless. People were starting to wonder why this was taking so long. Behind the scenes, even the Greenburgh police admitted that they were a little in over their heads. Homicide wasn't exactly their specialty, and the cracks were beginning to show. One major slip-up was a black fabric glove that was clearly visible in crime scene photos that had completely disappeared.
Oh, I'm so tired.
No one knew where it ended up, and it had never been logged as evidence. So this is what I was going to say about, returning things back to the house, returning the house back to them. There's some things that you'll see as we go that maybe weren't done
properly
or to standards. So
yeah, and the standards back then was also different.
Right. We'll start to kind of see this as a reoccurring trend a little bit.
Hate it.
So apparently, before one of his early interviews, investigators actually told Paul to go home and clean himself up. So they literally told him to go home and take a shower, which... I'm sorry, what? If there was any gunpowder residue or trace evidence on him, it was literally washed down the drain at this point.
And you just let him go home?
Yeah,
to the crime scene? And who knows what he could have done while he was home?
Yeah, 1,000%. And don't forget, they also let him go to his neighbor's house. And when they went to go interview him the first time, he was kind of sitting at his neighbor's house. There's so many things that kind of went wrong here.
'Twas the 80s.
Yeah. Despite being interviewed over a dozen times, Paul's story never switched up. He stayed consistent, never slipping up, even when questioned about the glove. He denied seeing it, moving it, having anything to do with it. Meanwhile, as months dragged on, forensic results finally came in. The ballistics report confirmed that the murder weapon was a .25 caliber Beretta, and based on the markings left on the bullets, it had in fact been fitted with a silencer.
Called it.
Which meant one thing to investigators. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment crime of passion. This was planned.
This was a hit.
Cold, calculated, and premeditated. And then came another jaw-dropper. Months after the murder, Paul admitted to visiting Carolyn's apartment. He claimed he went there to confront her, quote unquote, telling her to stop writing him letters and to make it clear that they couldn't continue seeing each other. But Carolyn had a totally different story. She said that Paul had come to her because he missed her and that he was trying to rekindle their relationship. And according to Carolyn, things got intimate. Paul denied it, saying they only shared a kiss, but either way, it was obviously something romantic that was kind of happening there. Paul would later call the whole encounter a mistake and refuse to own up to any sexual contact. Your wife has just died.
Just died.
Literally.
We're looking at who killed her, and you're one of the suspects, the two of you.
Right, literally. And it's maybe it's not the best idea to go,
even if you just kiss. Let's not, maybe.
I can't. After that, Carolyn started spiraling. Her letters became more desperate and her behavior more erratic. About 5 months after Betty Jeanne's death, Paul began dating someone new, another teacher named Barbara Baller.
What a dog.
Literally, Paul definitely has a type, by the way, like teacher.
Young
like
teachers.
Her wife was just brutally murdered. I feel like this is not making you look any better. Oh. But regardless of how anyone openly viewed the new relationship, the two took a little vacation to Puerto Rico for some sunshine and escape.
Oh, that's so
This
nice.
man is literally like, what a catch.
Living La Vida Loca.
What a catch.
Wow.
I can't.
Damn.
And as if the letters weren't obsessive enough, guess who showed up to crash the vacation?
No.
I'll give you a second. If you guessed Carolyn, you'd be correct.
What is happening?
She literally tracked them down at their resort. Can you imagine being on vacation with your new boyfriend and his murder suspect I was going to say ex-wife, but ex-girlfriend shows up poolside?
So in the last 3 months, this man has been with 3 women.
Yes.
And his wife has been murdered in that same time frame.
Yes.
Okay.
It's insane.
Yep.
Paul left Puerto Rico early, flying home alone because he said he feared for his life, which I don't blame you at this point. I would be creeped out if you're on vacation with your new, regardless of however we feel, if you're on vacation with your new bae.
Carolyn is
and
not well.
then all of a sudden your ex, who is also being like investigated for murder, shows up without an invitation, even though she claims that he invited her.
Sweet girl, she's not well.
So Paul left Puerto Rico early, as he should at this point. And like I said, meanwhile, Carolyn had been leaving him disturbing voicemails and creepy notes. She even tried to convince people that she'd been invited to the resort. So she would literally leave him the voicemail saying, hey, I'm here, can't find you, whatever. Spoiler alert, she hadn't been invited.
No.
Investigators later found out that Carolyn had tracked Paul and Barbara by manipulating Barbara's roommate, a woman named Tammy Rogers.
Oh, I'm scared of
Carolyn
her.
called her pretending to be someone named Madison, apparently, asking where Barbara had gone. She even went so far as to call Barbara's mother, pretending to be a Greenberg police officer, and told her that her daughter was romantically involved with a man suspected of killing his wife in a desperate attempt to break them up.
This is too much. For
For
this guy?
This is a stage 5 clinger.
No,
I'm sorry.
This is too much trouble.
I need to know what Paul is bringing to the table at this point. That
No
this
man
woman is like...
is worth this.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Especially, like, girl, you're 20-something years old.
Right.
Leave the 40-year-old married man
Literally.
alone.
Live your life. Live your life, girl.
Oh my God.
He must be quite the charmer. Mm-hmm. What they found next was straight out of a thriller. In April and May, investigators spent most of their time subpoenaing and sorting through Carolyn's phone records, and they found that Carolyn had made several calls to a private investigator named Vincent Parco, which seemed odd to say the least. So detectives headed to Parco's office at 210 West 35th Street in Manhattan to ask what was going on. Like, why are you calling private investigators, ma'am? Turns out, apparently, Carolyn had hired Parco to spy on another man, a New Jersey bartender named Matthew that she'd been seeing.
Okay.
Matthew was married. Surprise, surprise.
She has a type.
Which Carolyn claims that she didn't know at first, but once Parco confirmed it, she asked if his team would take nude photos of her, allegedly to ruin his marriage. So I think she was trying to plant these photos in a way to get them to break up. This is allegedly. For whatever reason, detectives became suspicious that Parco wasn't telling them everything. They brought him back in for a second interview. Eventually, police secured a search warrant and raided his office on November 15th, 1989. And that's when the truth finally came out.
Oh, God.
Under pressure, Parco admitted that just weeks before Betty Jeanne's murder, Carolyn had purchased a .25 caliber Beretta, the same type of weapon used in the killing of Betty Jeanne.
Really?
Not only that, but the gun was fitted with a custom-made silencer, built by a man named George Peters at a plant in Brooklyn. Carolyn had paid $2,500 in cash, and Parco claimed that he had kept quiet because he didn't want to get in trouble, especially after learning about the murder. But cooperating kept him from being charged, and he struck a deal that would keep him out of trouble as long as they didn't find any evidence that he was linked directly to the murder. Okay. So basically, they were kind of like, you're safe, but if we find out that you actually physically had something to do with killing her, then, like, this is off the table.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, he helped her secure an illegal weapon.
Right, exactly. That same day, police found George Peters, searched his workshop, and hit the jackpot. Peters told them that he had tested the silencer by firing the Beretta into a 2x4 inside the building. And those shell casings, they matched the ones found at the Solomon crime scene. Police finally had their smoking gun. Not literally,
Literally,
because
though.
they couldn't find it, but literally. A few days later, detectives returned to Carolyn's Manhattan apartment with a warrant to conduct a search. They didn't find the gun or that glove that was missing in pictures, but they did discover a weird handwritten note. Some called it almost like a suicide note because it kind of read like a goodbye letter. Carolyn had written out funeral instructions, including a request to be buried with her favorite stuffed animals and pictures of Paul and Kristen.
Oh my God.
It was definitely a weird find.
What?
Like, it's kind of creepy, right?
Can you please bury me with my stuffed animals and
His daughter's photos? That's, like, unsettling. Although the search didn't really result in any major evidence, investigators believed they had more than enough circumstantial proof to move forward. On February 2nd, 1990, Carolyn Wormus was officially indicted for the murder of Betty Jeanne Solomon.
That took a long time.
Yeah, and the funny part is that she didn't find out from the police. According to Carolyn, a Westchester reporter was the one who broke the news to her over the phone.
Okay.
From there, it was a media explosion. Carolyn, the young, glamorous, wealthy daughter of a multimillionaire, was suddenly splashed across newspapers and TV screens everywhere. The press dubbed it the Fatal Attraction murder, leaning hard into the story of the beautiful teacher who killed for love. The narrative was juicy, scandalous, and tailor-made for the tabloids. With the media circus swirling and public fascination at a fever pitch, Carolyn Wormus was ready to face trial, but she wasn't walking in unarmed. Thanks to her family's wealth, she assembled a powerhouse legal team led by David Lewis. He was known for being an absolute bulldog in the courtroom. During the pretrial hearings, Lewis came in swinging. He fought aggressively to get key evidence thrown out, most notably anything related to Carolyn's very stalkerish Puerto Rico stunt. But prosecutors pushed back, reminding the court of Carolyn's history of obsessive behavior in past relationships. In one example, she left a note for a former lover, falsely claiming that she was pregnant, which eventually led the man to file for an order of protection.
Oh, girl.
Not the look. Juicy, yes. Admissible, no. So Judge John Kerry ruled that it would unfairly prejudice the jury, so that little gem was off limits.
Fair.
Meanwhile, the media was eating up every single second. On June 15th, 1990, Carolyn strutted into court wearing the now infamous peach outfit. I have to show you a picture of it.
Oh.
That most people know this case by. She had on a wide-brimmed peach hat with a perfectly coordinated skirt, jacket, and heels.
I'm picturing like a grandma going to church.
Yeah, like very glamorous. Yeah, like a Sunday service
yeah,
attire.
Southern Baptist.
Yes. It was a whole fashion moment, which is kind of chilling because it's not a red carpet event. This is a murder trial. I don't know.
This is your murder trial.
Right. And the cameras lost their minds, though, at the sight of this. The narrative of the glamorous killer was now fully cemented. Part teacher, part temptress, and possibly
like Scarsdale.
a cold-blooded murderer. Right, exactly.
Yeah, very fancy.
The actual trial began on January 14th, 1991, nearly 2 years after Betty Jeanne Solomon was found murdered. Carolyn was just 26 years old at the time, and in opening statements, David Lewis unveiled a totally unexpected theory. Paul Solomon and shady private investigator Vincent Parco had conspired to frame Carolyn for reasons that were honestly never fully clear. That was just kind of what he came up with. I feel like they're like, let's just throw something and see if it sticks.
You just need to make that reasonable doubt.
Carolyn wanted to testify in her own defense, but Lewis firmly shut that idea down. He warned that prosecutors would weaponize her past relationships and especially her sex life to damage her credibility and distract from the real issues at hand.
That is what they do.
Especially with all of the media attention that she was getting for all of the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
So Lewis got to work in another way by exposing the weaknesses in the prosecution's case. And there were some weaknesses. There was no murder weapon. No physical evidence, no witnesses, no confession. He hammered the idea that the investigation had been sloppy and incomplete from the start.
Which is true.
It is true. I hate to give it to them, but it is true.
Yeah.
Then came January 30th. Detective Constantino took the stand and Lewis pounced. He grilled him hard, bringing up the mysterious missing glove, the failure to secure the scene, and the blunders that could have cost the case everything. Later that same day, Paul Solomon took the stand, and Lewis didn't hold back. He tore into Paul, revealing that he had accepted immunity in exchange for testifying, which is weird. Why are you taking a plea deal almost if you don't have anything to do with it, you know?
Right.
Which meant that he could never be charged with Betty Jeanne's murder, no matter what the outcome of this was. And then Lewis dropped this bombshell, which when I read this, I had to kind of pick my jaw up off the floor. Paul had made $120,000 for selling the rights to his wife's murder story, plus an extra $30,000 for consulting on a movie. Paul had quite literally cashed in on the tragedy not even a year after his wife's murder.
Oh, no.
Which, listen, we listen and we don't judge, but come on.
That's a lot.
Like,
that feels really like unusual behavior.
He is a man of opportunity, I must say. Very interesting.
I guess. I just can't even wrap my mind around
I would
selling this story.
If I die,
the wife dies and it's like, oh, she'd want you to find love. I'm like, I just want to say, I don't want that. I want you to miss me
can you
forever.
Grieve my death?
If you don't, I'll haunt you.
Maybe that's me being a little selfish. I don't know.
I'm selfish.
All right, so moving right along. On February 21st, it was Vincent Parco's turn, and Lewis went on the attack, painting Parco as shady and self-serving.
Fair.
At one point, he even suggested that Parco himself might have been involved in the killing. Again, kind of trying to paint that reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
Week after week, the trial just kept delivering twist after twist. Then came a woman named Patricia January, who was a school nurse who had worked with Carolyn. She testified that Carolyn once confided in her about buying a gun, but said that she didn't have any ammo for it. Some people thought Patricia was a little too detailed in her memory. Like, don't forget this happened over 2 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
Like, she had, like, they kind of felt like she was reciting the conversation like she just had it yesterday.
Interesting.
But others believed her completely, and the prosecution leaned on that moment hard. So I almost feel like sometimes having too sharp of a memory is, like, not
like, did
a
you
natural
make that whole
thing.
Story up? Yeah.
Right. Meanwhile, the courtroom tension was thick. Carolyn's team fought to cast doubt, but the media's portrayal of her as a seductive, lovesick killer just wouldn't let up.
Yeah.
Then came one of the prosecution's strongest moments, the infamous Puerto Rico trip. Carolyn said that she'd been invited. Paul said she stalked him there. But the real nail in the coffin, the phone records proving Carolyn had been the one to call Barbara's roommate, Tammy Rogers, using a fake name to find out where they were staying.
It's so crazy.
I know. On March 7th, Tammy took the stand, and she told the court that she knew immediately it was Carolyn on the phone. She said her voice was unmistakable. It was a pivotal moment, one that finally tied Carolyn directly to the deception and obsession prosecutors were building their case around. Then on March 18th, 1991, prosecutors revealed that on the day of the murder at 3:02 p.m., a call was made from Carolyn's phone to Ray's Sports Shop in New Jersey, a store known for selling ammo. Investigators traced the ammunition purchase to an ID belonging to a woman named Lisa Katai. So follow me here. Lisa had said that her ID had mysteriously disappeared from her purse during a summer job. Nothing else was stolen, no money or anything like that. And guess who had worked right next to her at that job?
Stop.
Carolyn.
Not Carolyn.
Prosecutors claimed that Carolyn had stolen the ID just to buy the bullets in an effort to hide her identity. Lucky for Carolyn, though, employees couldn't pick Carolyn out of a photo lineup. And the store's surveillance footage had already been erased when detectives tried to play it back because tapes were only kept for 30 days at a time. And again, don't forget, this is over 2 years later that they're taking this to trial. So, like, I don't even remember who, like, my barista was at Starbucks today, let alone, like, someone who came in to buy bullets 2 years ago, you know?
Yeah. Better to say I don't know than making things up like that school nurse.
As the days went on, even phone records became a battleground in the courtroom. The prosecution's records showed that Carolyn called Ray's, but the defense presented their own set of records, claiming that she called her mother in Michigan at that exact time. The jury was basically told to decide which record sounded more credible, which...
That's not how records work?
How is that even allowed? Like... Over a week later, though, the defense's phone records were finally exposed as fake. The FBI, so Carolyn's records were falsified. The FBI confirmed that the paper, ink, and formatting didn't match official company records, and one important detail that it was missing was the phone company's slogan. So I guess all of their records said communications for the next 100 years on the bottom of it, and the records Carolyn presented didn't have that. So the records were clearly falsified, and it completely crushed the defense's credibility at that time.
Crazy you can even do that.
I know. As if that didn't raise enough eyebrows, on April 8th, David Lewis introduced a wild card witness, a man named Joseph Lysella, which was described by those in the courtroom as a shady character in a Hail Mary attempt to discredit Paul and Vincent, the private investigator. So Joseph testified that he had stopped at the Brunswick bowling alley in Yonkers, which, don't forget, is the same bowling alley that Paul was the night of the murder, while driving home from Atlantic City. According to Lysella, while using the restroom, he overheard two men talking. One apparently said, quote, "Did you bring the money?" And the other replied, quote, "Where's the gun?" And the first man answered, quote, "Don't worry about the gun. It's in the deepest pile in the river." Lysella's testimony hinted at a possible conspiracy as he tried to plant a seed of doubt about Paul's involvement. However, his account was met with a lot of skepticism. His chance encounter, combined with the vague and shadowy details of the conversation, made it difficult for the defense to leverage this testimony effectively. But Lewis still tried to use Lysella's story to bolster his argument that there was more to the case than met the eye, and that perhaps Carolyn was being framed. On April 8th, 1991, Carolyn's father was the last witness called to take the stand, which I think it's important to note that it was the only day that any of Carolyn's family actually showed up to court for her.
Really?
Yeah, a detail that definitely did not go unnoticed by the jury. Legal experts noted that a lack of family support during a trial often sends a negative signal to the jury, but Carolyn later claimed that she had tried to protect her family from the public scrutiny surrounding the case because it was broadcasted so, widely. Her father's testimony, however, delivered another shocking moment. He testified that Frank Parco had contacted him before Carolyn was even indicted, informing him that Carolyn was in serious legal trouble. Parco claimed that he could, quote, "make it all go away" for a 6-figure sum. As her father stood up and left the courtroom after his testimony, the jury observed that he didn't even glance in Carolyn's direction, which, again, is not a good look for Carolyn.
Not great.
On April 17th, 1991, after weeks of testimony and mounting evidence, jury deliberations began. By April 27th, 1991, after 12 days of deliberation, the jury was hopelessly deadlocked with 8 jurors voting for conviction and 4 for acquittal. Unable to reach a unanimous verdict, the judge declared a mistrial, but prosecutors immediately signaled their intent to retry Carolyn. The second trial began 8 months later on January 22nd, 1992. This time, Carolyn had hired a new attorney, William Aaron Walt. While Walt was considered a strong and capable attorney, he was known to be the polar opposite of David Lewis, Carolyn's previous lawyer. Walt wasted no time shifting the narrative, immediately pointing the finger at Paul Solomon. On the very first day of the second trial, prosecutors dropped a surprise discovery bombshell. Apparently, they instructed Paul Solomon to go home and locate that infamous glove. And surprise, surprise, to everyone's astonishment, he went home and apparently he found the glove.
Stop.
And just like that, prosecutors entered it into discovery. Could you imagine, here it is after all these freaking months.
5 years later.
Literally.
Oh, come on.
The glove's sudden appearance triggered a heated dispute, and the jury was ushered out of the courtroom while both sides argued about its admissibility.
Wow, okay.
Walt challenged the glove's chain of custody, arguing that there was no proof that it was the same glove depicted in the original crime scene photos. Prosecutors, however, countered that since Solomon had just found the glove in his apartment where the photo was taken, the chain of custody had not, in fact, been broken.
No,
I don't think it works that way, right?
It's been years.
Literally, anything could have happened to it.
Oh, stop.
Judge, and it's true. Who is to say that this is the same glove?
I'm assuming it's a black, regular winter glove.
I'm thinking of if it doesn't fit, you must acquit. I'm thinking of
a leather glove?
Yeah, one of those. Judge John Carey imposed a series of conditions on the prosecution before admitting the glove into evidence. So they do admit it into evidence.
That's crazy.
The glove was sent to a forensic lab where analysis revealed reveal traces of blood and fibers. So I guess maybe it was the glove.
Okay.
The fibers match those found under Betty Jeanne's fingernails, but forensic experts cannot definitely prove that it was the same glove seen at the crime scene.
Right.
Despite the uncertainty, prosecutors worked to establish a direct link between Carolyn and the glove. On April 6, 1992, they delivered a crucial breakthrough. American Express records confirmed that Carolyn had purchased the gloves in late fall or early winter of 1988.
Oh.
The SKU numbers, or is it SKU?
SKU.
It is SKU, right?
Yeah.
The SKU numbers on the purchase matched the gloves in question. To further solidify the connection, prosecutors called Kristen to the stand. Under oath, Kristen testified that the glove appeared to be Carolyn's. She recalled borrowing the glove for about 5 hours during a ski trip they had taken together 4 years earlier. Her testimony gave the prosecution the evidence they needed to place Carolyn at the scene. After 4 months of testimony from 55 different witnesses, the case went to the jury on May 21st, 1992. 6 days later, on May 27th, 1992, the jury returned with a guilty verdict for murder.
6 days?
6 days.
Wow.
Judge Carey sentenced Carolyn to the maximum penalty, 25 years to life, and she was sent to Bedford Hills Correctional Facility, a maximum security prison, which I actually just recently passed by. I didn't realize how close it is.
Yes, it's very close.
So interesting. And it's like right on the street too.
Yes.
Like I think it says that it's a it says maximum security prison, but it's like it's very accessible.
It seems like that too. Sing Sing too in Austining is like right there.
Is it? That's
Yes.
so interesting.
I know.
9 months after her conviction, Carolyn returned to court to face charges related to the forced MCI phone bill that had been presented as evidence during her first trial.
Oh.
So you can't falsify like evidence.
Oh,
So
that's illegal
yeah.
fraud. Yeah,
illegal.
No. We can't do that.
She took a plea deal, pleading guilty to attempted criminal possession of a forged document. Her sentence for this charge was ordered to run concurrently with her murder sentence.
Okay, fine.
During her time in prison, Warmis accumulated a significant disciplinary record. A document released in January 2017 detailed 11 Tier 3 and 4 Tier 2 misconducts, with a total of 11 being ruled as affirmed. These disciplinary issues were specifically referenced during her first parole denial in early 2017. So she was up for parole, and they denied her.
She's wild.
Yeah, she is a wild
What's the
child.
matter with her?
Literally, like simmer down.
She can't behave for anything.
No, literally. So Warmis had her first parole hearing on January 9, 2017, represented by attorney Mayor Magenroth?
Okay.
Morganroth? I think it's Morganroth. She was denied parole in January 2017 and then again in July 2018. However, after serving 27 years, she was finally granted parole on June 17th, 2019.
Ooh.
During her 27-year sentence, Carolyn never gave up her fight to prove her innocence. She filed multiple appeals, all of which were denied, and repeatedly requested DNA testing of key evidence from the crime scene. The district attorney's office consistently denied her requests. However, in a stunning development on May 3rd, 2021, after years of pressure and advancements in forensic technology, Westchester County District Attorney Mimi Rocha finally agreed to allow testing on several critical pieces of evidence, including the notorious glove, semen recovered from the victim, and blood found in a tote bag belonging to Paul Solomon.
Oh.
However, subsequent reports indicate that to date, no testing has been performed.
Oh.
As of May 2025, there is no available information confirming that the DNA testing has been conducted on the evidence as in Carolyn Warmis's case. So apparently, which I guess finding semen, like I think Paul did say that they had sex in the morning, so I don't think that that's that far-fetched.
No, like I don't think she was sexually assaulted or anything.
No, I just thought that it was interesting that there was blood in a tote bag that belonged to Paul, and like, have they tested that before? You know, like I wonder if that
like
was...
when you say tote bag, you mean like a...
Like, I'm wondering if it's like
a purse or like a shopping bag?
I don't know. I was thinking of like his bowl, like maybe he went bowling with the bag.
Oh, sure.
I don't know.
Even still, like...
Yeah, like why is there blood on that?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I thought, and then obviously, of course, the glove. So, I'm guessing that she is very adamant that they'll find something. And with DNA advancements too, from now to, like from the 80s till now, I'm sure that there is
why not just test it?
I don't know.
We have to know. Tell us.
Literally. So that's kind of where the case stands at the moment. So that is literally the case of Carolyn Warmis.